Bible Quiz!
Well, hello again, everyone. We're going to continue in the miracles that Jesus did in the Gospel of John. So let's have a bit of a recap, shall we? What was the first miracle that Jesus did in the Gospel of John? Do you remember? Well, yes, of course you do. It was the water being turned into wine at the wedding in Cana, you will remember. And Jesus was to show and point forward to something great that he would do about the wine. And we could see that Jesus and his mother, Mary, she trusted him totally. And she looked at him and then she said to the servants, whatever he says, do it. Mary had grown to trust and know that her son, he always had the answers, the right answers. And then we talked about the nobleman, the man who was a high official. And he had a little boy who wasn't well at all. And Jesus healed him from a distance. And how excited he was. Jesus again had the answer. We remember also in the third miracle of John that Jesus did, this man who couldn't walk and he wanted to get into that water to be healed, but he couldn't get there in time. And Jesus makes him well. And he was so grateful. Again, Jesus would talk to him about what he must do to follow Jesus. But the most important thing, Jesus wanted everybody to know about the kingdom. And that Jesus would be king. And God's kingdom would be on this earth. Isn't that marvelous? The fourth miracle. Remember, this little lad, he had 5 loaves and 2 fishes, barley loaves, we're told. And there was all these people, over 5,000 people. Remember we said that it said 5,000 men. Well, if there was 5,000 men, maybe there might have been about 5,000 women, let alone the children. There was thousands of people there. And with 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes, Jesus blessed them, broke them, gave thanks, and all these people were fed. Remember? Jesus said for them to sit down in companies of 50. Another gospel says to sit down in companies of 150. And they all sat on the green grass. What a picnic. And there was so much bread out left over. Jesus says, gather up the bread that's left over. Let's not waste anything. And there was enough to fill 12 baskets full of the leftover bread. Wow. But there was a problem, remember. Jesus knew that they wanted him to become king. And he says to the disciples, quickly, get onto the boat. Get, and I'll meet you on the other side. Go quickly. And Jesus was there in the mountain by himself alone. It wasn't the right time for him to become king yet. Jesus knew that his Father in heaven wanted him to put the cross first, then the crown. And so he sends them all away because he could tell they were gathering together to make him king now, but it wasn't the right time now. And so Jesus sends the disciples away on the boat, saying that he would meet them later. But as they're going across, there's an awful storm. And they're really scared. They're rowing and rowing. It's no good. They just can't get to the other side. And they're full of fear. And all of a sudden, they see something that terrifies them. They see a figure walking on the water coming towards them. How? And they're terrified. And Jesus says, don't be fearful. It's me. Don't be afraid. And Peter says, Lord, if it's you, can I come and walk on the water, please? And Jesus says, come. And Peter steps out of the boat and walks on the water towards Jesus. But he gets scared. He begins to panic. He's worried. And he loses sight of Jesus, maybe in the storm. And he sinks below the waves. And he says, Lord, save me. And Jesus holds him and brings him onto the boat. And then the verse says, immediately they got to the shore. It's as if Jesus brings them instantly to the shore. Wow. And then we looked at the man who was born blind. And then Jesus makes clay with the mud of the ground and puts it in his eyes and says to the man, go to the pool Siloam, which means, what did we say it means? It means sent. Go to the pool Siloam, sent. And he goes and he washes the water with his, he washes the mud away from his eyes. He could see again. Wow. So Jesus turning the water into wine. The little boy who was made well. The man who couldn't walk. Jesus walking on water. Feeding the 5,000 with bread and fish. The man who was born blind. Never seen a flower before. Never seen a bird before. And now we come to the seventh wonderful miracle recorded for us in the Gospel of John. This is a story of a man who died and Jesus brought back to life again.
It's all about someone who was raised from the dead. Open your Bibles, please, to John chapter 11. In John chapter 11, there are three special friends that Jesus had. Verse 1 of John chapter 11. Now a certain man was sick, named Lazarus, of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. So, a brother and his two sisters, Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. Verse 2 says, it was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. This was a little family home in Bethany. What is important to bear in mind is that they loved Jesus so much, and Jesus loved them as his dear friends. They respected Jesus greatly. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. So what the verse tells us is that Lazarus was very ill, and his sisters knew that if they asked Jesus, then they were sure that he could make him well again. Maybe you've been ill in the past. For Mary and Martha, they knew that Jesus could help their brother. When Jesus heard that, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. What does that mean? the message comes that Lazarus is sick. Please come and help him. Please come as quickly as you can. But look what Jesus does. We go down to verse 7. Then after that saith he to his disciples, let us go into Judea again. But as the verses continue, verse 11, these things said he, and after that he saith unto them, our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of sleep. Now the disciples didn't understand what Jesus meant. Jesus took his time getting to where Lazarus was. He didn't go immediately, he took his time. And then Jesus says, Lazarus is sleeping. And then they say, well, if he's sleeping, he's doing well. But Jesus meant, verse 14, then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Well, actually, if Jesus had got there earlier, he could have stopped him from dying. So what was Jesus trying to show them? You see, as these verses continue, it shows that Jesus knew, with the help of his Father in heaven, he was going to bring Lazarus back to life again. But his sisters didn't realize that at the time. They didn't know. They wanted Lazarus not to die. Verse 15. And I am glad for your sakes, Jesus says, that I was not there, to the intent ye may believe. Now look at verse 17. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had laid in the grave 4 days already. 4 days. I have a question. Jesus knew that Lazarus was ill. But Jesus doesn't rush to save him. He gets to where Lazarus is 4 days later. And by that time, Lazarus was dead. Then when Jesus came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now, there's a picture of Bethany. Bethany wasn't too far from Jerusalem, and it was that area where Jesus would do his work in preaching. Jesus was teaching in that area, and so he knew that area well. Lazarus was well known in the area of Bethany. Mary and Martha, as his two sisters, were well known in Bethany. Verse 18. Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs. That's about a mile and a half, about 2 miles away. Now look at Lazarus' sisters. They're so upset, so upset. Oh, where's Jesus? We sent the message for him to come as quickly as possible. And now Lazarus, he's been in the grave for 4 days. It's too late. He's dead. Where was Jesus? And many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary sat still in the house. Martha heard that Jesus is coming. She ran to meet Jesus. But Mary didn't move. she sat in the house. We have two sisters, one running to meet Jesus, but the other sat in the house, so upset. I wonder why. Why do you think Mary sat in the house? Maybe she was disappointed in Jesus. Maybe she wanted him to come quickly, but he didn't turn up in time. In fact, she had heard that if Jesus had if he had just said the word wherever he was, Lazarus would have been healed, surely. He did it before. Remember the nobleman? We did it earlier in one of our lessons. The nobleman who had a little boy, and he went back home and his little boy was well. Surely Jesus could have done that. Maybe that's why Mary sat in the house. Maybe she was a little disappointed in Jesus. But her sister, Martha, when someone says Jesus is coming, she gets up and she runs to meet Jesus because she wants to talk to him. Maybe she wants to ask, Lord, couldn't you have come earlier? He's dead. He's been in the grave for 4 days already. Maybe that's the difference between these two sisters. Do you think Mary was sat at home sulking a bit? I can understand. Can't you? She didn't want her brother to die. But Martha runs to meet Jesus. Let's see what Martha says. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother had not died. Maybe Martha is thinking the same thing that Mary's thinking, who is sitting in the house. I think so. It almost sounds that she's in a nice way saying, Lord, where have you been? Lazarus is dead. If you were here, he wouldn't have died. But I know that even now, whatsoever you will ask, whatever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it you. I know whatever you ask. Whatever you ask God, he's going to do it. Jesus said unto her, your brother will rise from the dead. But look what Martha says. I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. That's interesting, isn't it? Did you know that Martha is telling us here that she believes that one day in the future there's going to be a resurrection from the dead. People will be risen from the dead. That verse is saying that it seems that it didn't even enter into her head that Jesus could raise Lazarus then and there, right now. Listen to what she says. I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day, in the future. Wow, look what Jesus says. I am the resurrection and the life. Look at verse 27. Verse 28. And when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary, her sister, secretly, who was sitting in the house. So she goes back and she says, Mary. She doesn't let anybody else in. Mary, Jesus is here. She tells her secretly, Jesus is here. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came unto him. She runs quickly to see Jesus. Now Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in that place where Martha met him. That's interesting. Where Martha had left Jesus, he hadn't moved. He was still there. He didn't rush to where Lazarus was. He was waiting for Mary to come. Then when Mary was come where Jesus was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Lord, if you had been here, Lazarus wouldn't have died. She's saying the same thing that her sister said. Lord, if only you were here, he wouldn't have died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. He sees all these people crying. They're so upset. And Jesus is upset. Why is Jesus upset? Do you think he's upset because Lazarus is dead? Oh no. Oh no. Jesus was troubled, verse 33. Verse 38, verse 37. And they say, couldn't this man stop him from dying? This same man who was able to cure a blind man, couldn't he do it? Verse 38, Jesus groaned in himself. Oh, why was Jesus upset? Why did he groan? It was because the people didn't believe that Jesus could do great things. They didn't believe that he was sent by God. God can do anything. And Jesus was upset, saddened in his heart, because they couldn't understand and they couldn't see. And they said, couldn't he have done it if he was here? Now what comes next is quite amazing. The people are talking. Couldn't he do something for Lazarus? Couldn't he help this man and stop this man from dying? Couldn't he do that? And his sisters are so upset. Lord, if you were here, if you were here, I am the resurrection and the life. He can live again. Believe me and trust me. Lord, if you were here. Verse 42. Verse 39. Jesus said, take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinks, because he's been dead for 4 days. His body is decaying. His body is rotting away. He's been dead for 4 days in the grave. If we open that stone, it's not going to be nice. There's going to be a horrible smell because his body is rotting. His body is decaying. Jesus saith unto her, said not I unto thee that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God? I know that thou heardest me always, and he prays to God. Verse 43. And when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. Lazarus, come forth. And you know what happens next? He comes forth. And when he thus had spoken, and he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Jesus saith unto them, loose him and let him go. He came out all wrapped up in the burial clothes. He was alive. So the question is, why did Jesus take so long to get there? He could have got there. He could have spoken to him and he would have stopped him from dying. He would have healed him. But Jesus waited for Lazarus to die so he could go and raise Lazarus from the dead so other people could see and believe. Hey, we know he was dead because we wrapped his dead body up and we put him in the grave and we rolled the stone. He's been in there dead for 4 days. We know he was dead. Wow. That 7th miracle in the Gospel of John is amazing because it shows that Jesus can raise people from the dead. Then many of the Jews which came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did believed on him. Oh, but look at the other people. But some of them went their way to the Pharisees and told them that what things Jesus had done. Do you know what Jesus did? No, what did he do? He raised a man from the dead. Why did he do that? He should not do that. Who does he think he is? How sad that is. In fact, in the next chapter, John chapter 12, they wanted to kill Lazarus again. But the chief priests, John chapter 12 verse 10, but the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death. What? They want to put him to death again? No. They didn't understand. They didn't want to believe. So what is our lesson? Our lesson is believe in God, believe in Jesus. And Lazarus' sisters believe that one day in the future there will be a resurrection from the dead. People, many, not all, many who are in the graves will be resurrected from the dead. What a time that will be. How amazing. Well, there are a couple more miracles, certainly in the Gospel of John, but this is the 7th one. And next time we look at a couple more. Thank you for your patience. See you again next time. Bye-bye for now.